Even though we like to hype flagship phones like the S24 or iPhone 16, not everyone wants to spend a fortune on a phone in this economy. Today, I will do a budget versus mid-range versus flagship comparison. I got the new Galaxy budget line A16 5G Exynos variant, and to help you make a better decision, I decided to compare it to a mid-range phone from this year, A55, and also compare it with a quote-to-quote affordable flagship phone, which is S24. The A16 I use is bought in Europe and has an Exynos 1330, and the S24 is an Exynos variant too. This test is also interesting in showing how different variations of Exynos compete against each other. The A16 unboxing experience is a flagship one. By that I mean there is no charger, a screen protector, or case in the box, similar to A55 and S24. Build quality is the first thing that comes to mind, and it differs among these phones. The back of the A16 is plastic and not as shatter resistant as the A55 and S24, which have aluminum frames and glass back. The display is another difference. A16 runs on 90Hz, which is already more than the Apple iPhone 16 offers. The other two are 120Hz, with the difference that the S24 refresh rate is variable. It is an LTPO display that helps save battery life. All phones are 1080 by 2340 pixels, but since S24 is smaller, the pixel density is better. A16 is also slightly larger than A55 and is 6.7 inches instead of 6.6 inches. But because of thick bezels, it does look even larger. Also, the notch on A16 is different from the A55 and S24. A16 also has a fingerprint scanner on the side instead of an under-screen fingerprint scanner like A55 and S24, but it works without any issues for me. All of them are bright enough, kinda. A55 and S24 go sufficiently that you can use them under the sun. For A16, it is advertised that it goes to 800 nits, and sometimes that's not enough. But again, it's better than the iPad mini 7 that will be released next week with 500 nits max brightness. Sorry Apple for picking on you, you are just an easy target. Regarding charging speed, all support 25 watts wire charging. S24 also supports wireless charging, but the other A series does not. I charged all phones 100% and went outside to photograph and start the battery test. The ultrawide camera of the A16 has 5 megapixel, which is relatively low. But on a smaller screen like here, you can't differentiate it from the A55 and S24. All three have a 50 megapixel main sensor. Here, the S24 has a bit of a lifted shadows, but all did a good job. I'll do pixel peeping later. If you zoom in, then the quality shows. S24 has a telephoto lens, and obviously, a 10 times picture like this will look better when captured by S24. The A55 also has a better visible quality compared to the A16. Let's focus on the ultrawide lens now. The flare on the A16 is leaking a lot, while the A55 and S24 handled it much better. In this picture, you can see that the white balance of A16 and A55 is very similar, while the S24 picture is more vibrant and yellow toned. Moving on to the main lens, all three surprisingly created a nice picture with a good dynamic range. I even low-key prefer the A16 camera to the A55. The flare here is not being handled nicely by any of them, and they all failed. In the next picture though, S24 and A55 did a better job. Again, the S24 picture is brighter with more lifted shadows. Again, the colors on S24 are more vivid with a yellow tone than the more neutral tone of the other two. Moving on to the telephoto lenses, S24 wins here since it has an optical telephoto lens, while the other two should crop from the 50 megapixel main sensor. The more visible difference I notice is that A55 pictures are softer compared to A16. A16 seemingly sharpens the image more. Either the lens itself is sharper or the software sharpens the edges. But looking at the grass here, you can see the difference visibly. When it comes to video, S24 and A55 can both do 4K, but A16 is limited to only Full HD, which is a bit of a shame. I'm quite confident that the processor should be able to handle 4K considering it is 5nm. Looking at 10 times zoom, S24 obviously makes the best photos, and this is to be expected. It is followed by rather acceptable photos from A55, and A16 is not doing great there. Also, I noticed that the stabilization on A16 is lacking a lot on 10 times zoom. Regarding selfie using portrait mode, I low-key prefer the one on the A16, but obviously the optical quality of the S24 is better, and the A16 is a bit over-sharpened. The A55 and A16 also have a dedicated macro camera. it can be used in certain situations, but the resolution is too low in my humble opinion to be useful. For videography, it is visible that the A16 lacks a bit of quality here, since it is only Full HD, while the A55 does 4K, and the S24 does 8K. Also, interestingly, when I switch to the main lens, I noticed that the watercolor is deeper on the A16 compared to the other two, and the tone on the A55 is warmer. The difference becomes even more visible if you zoom into the subject. By default, A16 and A55 zoom twice, while S24 zooms 3 times because of the telephoto lens. Also, the transition happens more smoothly on S24. Zooming 10 times into the subject shows the real difference. S24 is creating rather usable videos with lots of detail. A55 is okay, and there are some visible details, but A16 is not doing great, and the video is not usable, I would say, in this instance. It was getting dark, so I went home to take the rest of the battery test. In low light with the main lens, they all did okay, but they made the scene look much brighter than it actually was. I then continued the battery test by running YouTube. Right now, A55 has 93% battery left, A16 has 92%, and S24 has 86% battery left. All of them are connected to the same 5G network and running the same resolution for YouTube. Also, as a side note, I noticed that A16 had a problem connected to my Wi-Fi in this test, and I had to move the modem. It is just something to keep in mind. By the end of the test, after an hour, A55 was 84%, A16 was 81%, and S24 was 78% battery. All had very similar temperatures. Then, I ran the camera with the front-facing selfie for around 20 minutes, capturing Full HD. By the end of the test, A55 had 80%, A16 had 76%, and S24 had 72% battery left. The temperatures of A16 and A55 are similar and reasonable, but S24 is at 39 degrees Celsius, 102 Fahrenheit, which is too high for a simple video in Full HD. That said, A16 dimmed the screen, and as you saw, it also started to lag slightly. In general, I feel like 16 is laggy, especially if it gets a bit warm, and it does stutter occasionally. I then decided to do a speed test. Speed tests are not super accurate since they also depend on how fast I press the icons, and they show more RAM and storage speed than the capacity of the chipset. Nevertheless, I thought it would be interesting for you to see. When it comes to opening day-to-day applications, as expected, S24 was opening them faster than the other two. A55 was the close second, and A16 was the third. I tested apps like YouTube, Chrome, and the camera app. When it comes to opening heavier applications like Asphalt, there is nothing surprising here. S24 opened it first, followed shortly by A55, but A16 was a bit slow, and it took a few seconds to open the application after the other two siblings. Moving to performance, all phones run on Exynos, or at least the ones I have on the table now. The chipset on the A16 is a 5nm Exynos 1330, the chipset on the A55 is a 4nm Exynos 1480, and the one on S24 is an Exynos 2400. All of them were made in the Samsung Foundry. S24 and A55 have 8GB, and A16 has 4GB of RAM, at least my version. I did run Geekbench benchmark next. A55 got 1135, A16 got 955, and S24 got 2047 for single-core performance. For multi-core, S24 got more than 3 times the score of A16 and almost double of A55. Then I decided to run one loop or wildlife benchmark from 3D Mark to test the graphical unit. A55 was doing alright, A16 was struggling a bit, and S24 was killing it, which is to be expected. The result was the average frame rate is 23 for A55, 8 for A16, and 53 for S24. So don't expect to run 3D games smoothly on A16, but it should be okay for casual games. Finally, I decided to run an aquarium with WebGL to drain the batteries a bit more. By the end of all these tests that I conducted, A55 was 67% battery left, A16 was 61%, and S24 was 55%. The temperature of A16 and A55 was moderate during the whole test, while S24 was 3 to 4 degrees hotter even during daily tasks, which is because of the smaller form factor and of course a more powerful chipset. Moving to software, this year Samsung did something great. They are now supporting A16 for 6 years of major Android updates. Kudos to Samsung for this big step. Another good thing is that all phones run One UI, and the software experience you get is very similar. Features are missing here and there, like some AI gimmicks on S24, but I don't think you will notice any real difference between these three phones. What can be noticeable though is the camera experience, like the lack of 4K or some modes on A16. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, you could also see the comparison of S24 FE versus A55 versus S24 next. Thanks for tuning into TechMo, and I will see you in the next one.